Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. I'll just give people a couple more minutes or a minute or so just to join. Whilst people are joining, just got a few housekeeping things. So as usual, the webinar is recorded and will be shared afterwards in case you need to drop off at any point. And then we do have a Q&A section at the end of the webinar as well. So please feel free to drop anything in the Q&A panel and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you might have. So I'll get started, I think. So thank you very much for joining us today. So today we're here to talk about Contact Hub Connect, which is our upgraded digital platform and UI. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but I'll start off by doing some introductions. So a quick intro to MaxContact. Most people here are users of MaxContact, but there are a few new faces. So MaxContact is a cloud contact center provider, great for delivering conversation outcomes, customer insights to drive revenue compliantly. The main use cases of our platform is usually things like debt collection, sales, and customer services. And I'm Kayleigh Tait. I'm head of marketing. I've been with MaxContact now for just over 3 years, held various tech marketing lead roles, and joined the world of contact center and SaaS a little while ago. And we're joined today by Elin. So Elin is our UX lead at MaxContact, been at the organization for a number of years now, and has a background in designing solutions for both enterprise software and customer-facing products. And I'm testament to this, but Elin is really passionate about involving users throughout the design journey, the process, understanding needs, translating complex requirements into engaging experiences, and you can really see the fruits of Elin's labour with the MaxContact UI as well. So just as a bit of background, so Contact Hub Connect is a refresh of our agent user interface. It helps agents deal with your customers and not necessarily with technology. We launched Contact Hub a couple of months ago. We've now got over 20% of our customer base using it daily, and we've had really great feedback. So Contact Hub itself is available for all MaxContact customers. It's included in the license price, so there's no uplift in pricing or anything like that. And it is available for everyone to use as well. So it's super easy to set up. So we'll send some more information about it after the webinar itself. But the feedback we've had has been really great. And I think the main crux of this is it's been a really smooth transition for the people that have migrated to the new UI. Agents are able to pick up things quickly. It's more retraining of instincts rather than a full retraining program that is required to get up and productive. So Contact Hub has been rolled out across our voice channels, and now we're bringing to you the digital side of things. The timeline for release of digital is September, so that is when it will be available for everyone to use if you have digital licenses and use omnichannel. And really, a lot of work and effort has gone into looking at how clients use our digital tools and omni-channel services currently, understanding if there's any pain points where the things could be improved. But yeah, I think I'll leave more of that for Elin to talk through. So Elin, thank you for joining us. Would you like to just be able to give us a little bit of background of where do you start with a project like this? What's the process been like, to help give some context?
Yeah, of course. Where do you start with a project like this? So I suppose when we think about the digital side of Contact Hub, we'd already obviously laid a lot of the foundations when we looked at the voice side of things. So those of you who are familiar with Contact Hub for voice, there shouldn't be any surprises when you see digital. So a lot of the decisions we've made in terms of like structure, layout, some of the things which change from kind of legacy, a lot of that we had anticipated when we were looking at voice. So we already had an idea of what and how digital would work alongside voice. So we always had that in the back of our mind. And similar to voice as well, the first places we started is with our end users, our clients. So a lot of that involved kind of interviews, site visits with both agents and managers. And I think one thing that's also quite important to us here at MaxContact is it's not just your typical client-facing roles who interact with our end users. Like for us, it's important that kind of like myself, our developers, our product owners, we're all getting down to visit our clients, understanding how people are interacting, using the system, that kind of thing. So it's very important that, the people are actually building, making the product, understand how the end users use it. And I'd say some of the main outcomes from those visits and that research, we found that users typically had a bit more to say about digital itself in comparison to voice. So we uncovered quite a few more usability issues, so a lot of opportunity for us to improve, really. It also gave us a better understanding in terms of how people are, kind of like the context in which they use the system. So what other tools are they using? As well as MaxContact, what other browser tabs do they have open, things on their system, what's their desk and monitor setup like, and what's that kind of office environment, what is that like? And like a good example of this might be, we noticed agents are using kind of like inbuilt note systems or stickies, and they've got all their responses saved into here, when actually we do have a canned response feature. So it's kind of an opportunity for us to understand the gap between, some of these workarounds and the functionality that we have and we can offer. And again, an opportunity for us to learn and improve our functionality there. And then I think finally as well, and this is something we did touch on in the previous webinar we did for voice, but I think more so with digital, we have this greater expectation around how these platforms should look and feel. Like, we're using products like Teams, Slack, WhatsApp, Facebook, socially. We use these in our day-to-day. When we're sending messages, interacting digitally, we have an expectation of how these products work. And, we've never had to really learn how to use these. We've never had training. And I think a really important concept for us is, we continue that in our own products. So it should be really easy to pick up. I should know how to use it from day one. So I think that's been a core driver for this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're looking at some research around usage of digital channels, and the average consumer uses 6 touch points across various different channels when making a purchase. And that's in comparison to 2 touch points from 15 years ago. So like you say, just the proliferation of these channels only increases the importance of projects like this. So fantastic, thanks. So Elin, what are the main changes between the legacy UI and the new Contact Hub Connect side of things?
I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me 1 second. And I will take us through some of the core differences. Can you see Figma? It's quite zoomed out at the moment.
Yes.
Yes. So if we think about the main changes between Legacy and Contact Hub, I think there's 2 ways we can think about breaking this down. So we've got our wider product changes, and we've also got kind of these overall product experience changes. So when we think about wider product changes, and I've grabbed a comparison between Web Agent itself, how we refer to the legacy system, and the newer Contact Hub with some of the digital interactions in it. And I think, again, like I said earlier, there shouldn't be any surprises if you're familiar with Contact Hub for voice. So, those main structural changes and layouts, and which we've since had really positive feedback around, they're carried through to the digital experience as well. So when I'm doing different kind of interactions, whether that's email, web chat, or voice, you've got this consistent experience. So I think that's probably the larger and most obvious change, so the overall structure. And then I think one of the key things that is a big difference between kind of the legacy system and the newer version, one of the things we did find when we were looking into kind of how the system works today is the interaction styles themselves. They're very different. So if I'm sending an email or I'm sending a web chat, the UI is different, buttons can be in different places, you know, the system can behave a little bit differently. And I think for us, what we have seen is a bit of a kind of shift towards this more unified approach in some competitor products. So how, like, should these interactions feel different? So one of the decisions we have made as part of Contact Hub, and I'll just kind of give you a preview of what this looks like. So when I'm sending a web chat or whether I'm sending an email, you know, I've got this consistent feel between the different interaction types. So I think this is just kind of like really key for us in terms of like training. So as an agent, if I know how to use web chat, I should be able to really easily pick up email. So, you know, there's no channel specific training required. And it's almost like the kind of muscle memory as well. You know, my send button's always here, my end button's always here, my type button's always here, my interactions show in the same way on the screen. So I think that's probably one of the bigger decisions we have made, is to move towards that more unified approach with that as well. I'll just zoom out a second. And then, as I said, the two sections we're kind of looking at, so the larger changes and then the overall product experience changes. So these are almost your quality of life. So almost like the snowball effect of like I said, you know, agents were more vocal around usability issues when using the legacy product for digital interactions. And this is kind of broken into two sections. So frustrations with how the system itself behaves and kind of like key usability issues. So in terms of like system behavior, so it could be something like I send a message and the chat area will scroll straight back down to the top of the conversation, and I might send a message twice because I don't realize I've sent it. Or I'm being dragged to the bottom of the conversation when a new message comes in, when actually I was reading part of the conversation up there. It means I have to scroll back. All these things that kind of like eat into your time as an agent, and you know, they're just quite disruptive to your actual workflow. And I think, again, this is key when we think about, you know, other products like Teams, Slack, like we're saying, WhatsApp. We've got these expectations around how these products work. You know, if a new message comes in, I should have a notification, you know, don't just take me straight down to the bottom. So it's all these kind of things that we believe should just work as standard. So kind of like these frustrations. And then specific usability problems as well. So it can be things like where message types were different before, you know, agents were unsure around, you know, what button do I press on my keyboard to send or do a line shift? So as part of the unified interactions, you know, we've tried to make that really consistent. So it's always control enter to send, or it's always enter for a line break, and then signposting that, again, easier for agents to pick up and change between different channels as well. And it can be things like, you know, agents having to count the time from when they last sent a message, because that's not very clear. So how long has this customer not responded for? You know, that's not immediately clear to an agent. Another key one was differentiating between channel types. So in the current system, you know, they go, not channel types, messages, sorry. They're going across the top. Agents weren't sure, you know, who they're interacting with. They'd move around. So it wasn't where I last saw it when I clicked on it. And again, all of these little things that just get a little bit confusing and make the system a bit more difficult to use, especially in terms of, you know, knowing who I'm speaking to, which is very, very key. And another one as well is around like the size of the chat box. That's something we've really looked to improve. It's just very constricted, you know, as an agent's writing out their responses, it's very compressed, very small, and it's really tricky to edit anything in there as well. So kind of like a host of things that we've hopefully brought into the product, and, you know, overall, like I said, that snowball effect in kind of increase the quality of life of using the product. So they're kind of like some of the key areas.
Amazing, thanks. Yeah, it's great to hear all the opportunities and the I suppose the insight that we're getting from speaking to agents. I think we're all on the same page here at MaxContact around if we can make agents' life as easy as possible using the platform, they'll just be much more efficient and high performing. So that's absolutely what we've tried to deliver. So Elin, do you want to take us through the walkthrough of the customer journey and maybe bring that to life a little bit for everyone on the call?
So I will go ahead and share my screen again. And just a caveat as well, today we're going to be looking at a prototype version. So it's not the actual live version just yet. So it's essentially a series of images linked together. If those of you have been on calls with me as part of the research, you've probably seen some of these previously as well. So again, not complete functionality, but imagine, this is a live product and things behave as you'd expect it to do in the live product. So what we'll start with, so if you imagine I'm an agent, I've signed into my digital campaign. So currently, back a screen, you should see, again, some similarities with voice. So I've got my dashboard here. Again, that's customized to however you have your dashboard set up. And one of the key differences you'll probably see at the top here is the introduction of these two tabs. So in here, I've got my assigned to me and I've got my queues. And again, this leans to what I was saying earlier around, the shift of the products. Traditionally, we've had everything on the right-hand side. For that consistency with other products now, the mental model tends to be, my inbox is on the left-hand side, my chats are on the left-hand side. So we've tried to align with that, again, to make it easier for people to pick up. So like voice, I can see I'm not ready. I do have an additional button here, so I can go ready or I can go to queues. So going to queues will allow me to go in and pick my individual queues, again, depending on what permissions the agent has set up in their system. So if I go ahead and jump to queues, so I can use this tab here or I can use this button. So in here, I have an overview of all the different queues I'm assigned to. So again, this is permission-based. But in this example, I can see I've got 2 email queues, I've got a web chat queue, an SMS, and I've got an inbound voice queue as well. So I can see a bit of information about that particular queue. I can see the name, I can see how many people are waiting, how long they've been waiting for, so the longest wait time, and I can see my capacity. So again, similar to how it works today, just slightly different visual in terms of how we do it. So if I go ahead and put myself ready on a couple of queues, so we'll jump onto the ones where we know people are waiting. And typically in the system, if this were a live product, as soon as things start getting assigned to me, I would be taken back to my kind of like inbox or interaction panel. So I'm aware that I've got them. So as you can see, I now have 3 interactions assigned to myself. I've got an email from Daniel Lewis, I've got a web chat from Fiona, and I've got an SMS from Oliver. So I've got the first one assigned to me here. So a couple of things, again, in terms of like the differences between this product and legacy. We've obviously moved away from having those tabs along the top and gone for this kind of more typical like inbox style approach. So I can see the customer name, I've got an initial, again, hopefully that helps agents differentiate between these different conversations. I can see the type of interaction what the last message was. And I've also got a count here for how many messages have been sent. And then in terms of like the color you're seeing on here as well, I can see my SLA, so how long I have to reply. So I've got for an email up here, I can see I've got nearly 3 hours to reply. I can see the green bar that will tick up until it gets overdue. I've only got 2 minutes remaining on Fiona. So if I go ahead and click into that. So when I look at this interaction here, so again, you should see some familiarity with voice. If I had a script, I'd see that. I've got the interaction itself and I've got history. So again, I can click into all of those things. And I'll just show you the example if we were to click through different types of interactions to kind of demonstrate that unified interaction approach. So this is an email. See, I've got this kind of chat bubble approach. If I were to send a reply, it would sit down here. And then the same for a web chat. I can see some pre-chat response at the top here or location, depending on what I have enabled in my system. And then I can see the customer's messages down here. And then same again for SMS. So less focus on the channel type and more on the actual contents of the conversation. So let's go back to Fiona. And here where, like I said earlier, you've got your pre-chat responses and location. So that will sit right at the top of the conversation. And what we have added in across the top here is this almost kind of like pin bar. So let's say I'd had more messages exchanged with this particular interaction. I could click on one of these. It will take me straight back to that if I needed to pull some information from that pre-chat or from the location. And I would see a tooltip on hover as well. So let's add a response in here. So as you can see, this text box now, that's going to adapt to whatever I'm typing in here. So agents don't have to mess around with like resizing it. It's going to get as big as I need it to be essentially. But agents do also have the option to resize it. They can click and drag if they prefer to work in that way, or they could collapse it if they want to see more of the conversation as well. So if I go ahead and send this message, you can see my message has been sent. I can see it's sent by me, and I can see this is a web chat. So on the left-hand side, again, one thing we picked up as part of the usability testing, it's not clear how long it's been since I've sent a message, if I need to reply to that conversation. So we have tried to help mitigate some of that. So in this example here, I've got a replied arrow, so it's quite clear there's no new messages come through. I can see how long it's been since my last message was sent. For the sake of example, I've put a minute in there. And I can also see my SLA is paused. I don't have an SLA. I don't need to do anything with this particular interaction right now. So now we've replied to Fiona, let's go ahead and reply to Daniel just to demonstrate how an email could work. So if I were to type my response into here, you can see that text box is getting a bit bigger again. So I've got options for my CC and BCC if I want to add those in. Clicking on those, will give me those fields. And then in here, again, like if I wanted to say I wanted to add an attachment to this particular interaction, I can go ahead, do that. I can see my attachments added on here. I could get rid of it if I wanted to. I can go ahead and send that into the conversation. I can see my messages sent and my email attachments just at the bottom down there. And then similar to voice as well. So we added in the ability to add your notes. So again, I could do that in a digital interaction. So if I go ahead and add a note to this interaction, you can see that would populate in the chat. And again, I could go and find that in my history view as well. So the contact history, that would be visible in there. And let's say I wanted to end this interaction now. We're not sure how long it will be until they're going to reply, so we can get it cleared out of the inbox. So let's say this customer's pending some information. So we'll go ahead, end that interaction, and then I'm back to my other two. So in the 5 minutes that have passed since I last replied to Fiona, I can see a system message has been sent here. So hi, you're still there. I've got visibility of that there as well. So hopefully that gives you an overview of kind of like the overall layout and how the system works as well. And then I do have a couple more to demonstrate. Bear with me. So I wanted to look at a bit of the additional functionality we have in here as well. So things that help the agents build a bit more of a picture about who they're speaking to. So more information, more context. So one of the features we will be adding, and this will be available in voice soon as well, is this slide out panel on the right hand side here, which has my customers' information in. So I can see things like their first name, last name, reference, contact details. From here, if I have a number assigned to them, I could potentially call this customer. I can see any additional contact details we have. And then depending on the user's permissions as well, these will either be read-only or they will have permission to edit. If they do have permission to edit any of these, we've put things in place so it's not easy to delete anything, to change anything, confirmation modals, that kind of thing. So that's to help with kind of like any error prevention. If I go ahead and close this, we can also see an example of what history looks like with digital as well. So again, those of you familiar with Contact Hub should be aware of the contact history we do have in here. So it's just to show how it could work for email. So I can see this customer's had 3 previous interactions with us, 2 emails, there's been notes added, they were all closed. I can also see they've had an inbound voice call with us at some point. And then clicking onto any of these pulls out that side panel where I can see any notes. If there's more than one note, I get all of them in here. I can see any additional information on the right-hand side here as well. And then one addition we do have with digital as well is the ability to see almost like a transcript of that particular conversation. So, the agent's got that full context in there if they want to see what's happened in the past. And then the final other added bits of functionality. So again, like I was saying, this is almost treated as the inbox kind of area. So in terms of wanting to start a new interaction, so the most logical place we felt to do this was from in here. I think at the moment, you have to go and request it for your user menu, right down in the bottom left. And, it's things like this that just don't make sense and make the system less intuitive. So again, I'm adding something to my inbox. I should do that from down here. That's going to populate something in here. So if I go ahead and press that button, I get a couple of options. So what interaction type would I like to start? I can see a draft conversation has been created. It's got an indication that it's a draft and we don't know who the contact's going to be yet. So if I go ahead and press SMS, I get my contact search panel. So in here, I can use the advanced search. I can search by name, number. go ahead and select that contact. And then as I'm adding more detail in, it's filling out these sections up here. So now we can see we have a new message panel open at the top here. So I can choose which queue I want to send this particular SMS from. I can go ahead, add some content in there. Because it's SMS, I can see my counter at the bottom down here. So I can see this message will actually be 2 messages that will be sent. Go ahead, send that. And I can see then I've essentially got a new interaction with a new customer. And then let's say another example, I might want to transfer this for whatever reason. So again, for consistency with voice, those of you who know Contact Hub should be familiar with this. So again, we've looked for consistency here. So I can pick transfer type. So let's say we want to transfer it to a different queue. Again, these panels are very similar to what we do in voice. Go ahead and pick my outcome. I can add a message for whoever's going to receive that particular interaction when they pick it up from the queue. Place my transfer, and then it's gone. So that's then sent away. And then finally, the last one I did want to show was a little bit more around how Contact Hub, voice and digital kind of like work together. So we've kind of demonstrated how we've got, these interactions on the left-hand side here in our inbox. But if I go ahead, let's say I wanted to call Grace, they're available, they want to do a quick voice call. So I've got a green call button up here. I can start a call with this customer. I can see what numbers we have available for them. I got the opportunity to add a new one as well if I wanted to. So I can go and pick the number, go ahead and call them. And then you'll see, this is, again, completely exactly the same what we do for Contact Hub Voice. I've got all my call controls. I can see my other interactions are parked at the bottom here. So the SLAs are paused now, so I don't have to reply to these while I'm handling a voice interaction, again, depending on how your system's set up. But then I can just go ahead and speak to the customer like I normally would on any kind of voice interaction. I can see an example, this is where my script would pop up in the middle here. I'd have history, and it's all consistent to what we do with voice as well. And that is pretty much the overview I had prepared today.
Great, thanks, Elin. Yeah, it's great to see. What else is coming? There's a few more things in addition to the actual digital elements as well, isn't there?
Yes, I do have a couple of other things to share. Sorry, I shouldn't have stopped sharing my screen.
It's okay.
Apologies. Right, let me share my screen again. If we jump back to this file, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit and look over here. So one of the things we did want to talk about today is the spoken AI integration with Contact Hub for Voice. So the primary area you'll see this once it's been released, if you do have access to spoken, is actually on the contact history pages. So again, the purpose of these pages was to help give our agents, build context, understand the history of, what's happened in the past with this particular customer. So if you're on a system and the agent has spoken enabled, what you will see is the summary of that particular voice interaction taken from the transcript. So you'll also see the sentiment for that particular conversation, and you'll see, up to five main key topics for that particular conversation. You'll also see any notes the agent has added themselves. So, in this example, they've added 4 notes onto there. I can click and expand to see that side panel like we looked at a minute ago. So again, it's just adding more information, more context to, building a picture of, what happened on this particular interaction. And, see if I scroll down, just got a couple of different examples. I've had a neutral conversation here, a negative one. I can see the topics. The agent hasn't, let's say, had time to add notes to this one. Well, I've actually got the summary there, so the agent's not needed to. So again, just building that picture up. And then an example, so like we saw in the prototype I just went through, if I were to click onto one of these interactions, so we get that side panel out. So in here, again, you see that insight, you still see all of those notes, you get a bit more detail about the particular sentiment, but you also get the transcript for that particular conversation. So like you would get in digital, where it's already obviously, it's a written exchange, you would get the messages in there. But if you do have spoken, you do see the transcripts along with the timestamps, the sentiment for that particular exchange, that part of the conversation within the transcript. So again, gives the agent an idea, of exactly what was said on that particular call. And then another feature I did want to talk about today, because again, this is something that's currently in progress with the design team. So what I show you today, again, it may not look like this when we get to the final version of it. This is something that we will go through further research with our customers with. But one of the areas I touched on right at the beginning, if you remember, was, we've seen agents saving their own kind of like canned responses and templates in their own kind of like note tools, or stickies, I think it's called on Windows. So what I've done is just pulled up an example of the actual canned response feature we have in the system today. So, you type in ##, you can see your different responses there. So again, we've not seen that much uptake of this, not many people using it. And we have a couple of, thoughts around this. It could be, you don't see enough of the message itself. It's quite short here. There's not much space in there. So we've looked to improve that with, the actual overall kind of like experience of it. So one of the things we had looked at is the keyboard shortcut itself. One of the more common ones these days is a // like for example, in Teams, if you type a // you get your shortcut menu. It's very common in a lot of kind of like digital products these days. So just looking at how we could potentially expand on that feature, so giving users more of a overview of what that particular response contains. I can see what shortcut I need to get to it again. I can navigate up and down here with my keyboard. I can hit enter to insert them, or I can just press escape if I don't want to do any of this. And I think one of the other things we had been thinking about, and I don't necessarily have it here as well, there's other opportunities for us to think about other shortcuts in the products, like, I gave the Teams example. If I do a // I could do other things related to my interaction, start a call and the interaction. So again, laying down the foundations for future functionality with this kind of thing. And the second half of it we had looked at, again, in response to, agents do like having that kind of like full view of a particular response, and without the fear, I can edit it without accidentally sending it to the customer. So we've been thinking about that as well. So there is potential to have more of a home for your responses as well. So you're not always just kind of like getting them in really quickly. So looking at this sidebar on the right-hand side here, I can see all my responses in there. I can potentially search them. We could opportunity for different categories, that kind of thing. And then being able to click on it, giving the agent a bit more freedom to edit it, make any changes they want before they go ahead and send it to the customer. So kind of like some of the ideas we're thinking with that feature at the moment.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Elin. Yeah, it's great to see how much more efficient and easy things like that will be to use in the next versions of the platform. And then we've spoken, it's insights at your fingertips, but also can help reduce after work, I suppose, as well for agents. So yeah, great to see. Thank you for that. So there are a couple of questions. I think actually you have gone on to answer them, but I'll ask them anyway. So can your colleagues see the interaction history?
The interaction, also we're thinking contact history page.
Yeah, I think
yes,
the history
I believe
timeline.
they would be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And as part of that, would they be able to see the response in the history itself? And I think you did share that as well.
Yeah, so that was the conversation on the tab I think we shared, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okie doke. Thank you very much. So just for full clarity, so if you're an existing digital user, there's a couple of different options. We will be launching Contact Hub Connect in September. So we would be looking for beta partners to help understand the usability of these new features when they're live in production. Obviously, Elin's done an awful lot of research with clients already to understand needs and requirements, and has been through prototypes and things. But actually, day in, day out, using the platform when it launches, it would be great if you are open to joining the beta program. That would be fantastic. If you don't currently use digital and you want to consider that, absolutely reach out to us. It's an additional license to use digital channels. If you're just using voice right now, And then that the same applies with spoken as well. So as Elin said, where you saw spoken and the core transcripts, the summarization, the insights in the platform itself, if you would like those as part of your view and that visibility in the platform, then that is also an additional license as well. Everyone who is a MaxContact user, Contact Hub Voice is available now for everyone. It's enabled, you can actually activate it yourself using user plans. There's guides that go alongside it as well to make it really clear and easy, but it's absolutely something that you can control. And as I said at the start, that the Contact Hub Voice is included as part of your license. It's not an additional fee. It's a new UI that we are migrating to. And hopefully through Elin's description today, you can see the value in doing so. We've really approached this with a customer-centric approach, using feedback, research, and I think it'll be a great move. And the early signs from a lot of our clients that have moved are overwhelmingly positive. So I'll leave you with that. We'll send the follow. Oh, sorry, I think we've got another question. So we have an organization on the call who's a reseller. Can we be part of the beta process? Absolutely, we'll get in contact with you. I've got your details now, so we'll get in contact with you after this call. So absolutely, if there's any other interest, feel free to reach out via email, and we'll send all the guides and assets that you might need. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. We're very excited to see this in production and people getting value out of it. And yeah, thank you so much for your support and the insight that you help bring so that we're able to make great products like this. So yeah, thank you. And that's it. Thanks, Elin.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. See you soon.